What's up? We're going to break down the Arizona Cardinal-Dallas Cowboy game coming up this Sunday. And we have my brother in here, part of the family, the MCF family, but definitely not a Cowboy fan. He's an Arizona Cardinal fan. Dr. G, welcome to the show once again. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. And yourself?
Doing a lot better for the Trayvon Diggs injury here as a Cowboy fan. But we're loving our season. Our defense is dominant and still will be even without Trayvon Diggs. But I want to hear about the Cardinals. We talked about them all week. Tomorrow's the game. So now I want to know what your thoughts are about your team and a little bit about this matchup as well. So let's break it down here. 2023 Arizona Cardinals. Not a very good start to the season, even though you guys were close or in the lead. I think the halftime of both games against the Commanders and against the Giants last week. Blew that in the second half. Let me start off with your offense. I know Kyler Murray. He's gone for the first 4 weeks at least of the season. So quarterback position, obviously the leader of the team. You got Joshua Dobbs, formerly of the Tennessee Titans. That's when we played him last year in 2022. I think it was week 17 when we handled him, but he was running around a lot. You got backup Clayton Tune. Those are your quarterbacks right now. Of course, Dobbs will be starting in this game against the Cowboys. So what do you think about your Cardinal quarterback, Joshua Dobbs?
Well, the Cardinals did give up a fifth-round pick to bring him in literally just days before the season started. So it was not a surprise that against Washington that he didn't play very well. They didn't really call any plays that was going to challenge the defense. They did open it up more against the Giants, and in the first half he looked actually quite serviceable with his arm and with his legs. And it was night and day difference, as he basically promised during the mid-season, during the midweek press conferences. However, what I think concerned me more wasn't his accuracy, wasn't his decision making. It was the play calling in the second half. And I've had my own thoughts about this. I know there are a lot of Cardinals fans out there that are actively rooting for a winless season. I'm not one of them. I think that would be a humiliation that our team does not need to suffer. But it almost looked like they were scripting plays to lose in the second half against the Giants. And basically the last three possessions were just hand up the middle, two in a row, and then a 2-yard pass to the side and punt. And it was really quite disappointing, given the first half that he had, that we didn't let him continue to run the same kind of offense that was successful. That took us out to a 20-0 lead in the first half, and had things clicking even in the third quarter before we crawled into a shell. So I'm not sure how much of this was intentional, how much of this was the boss coming down in the locker room and basically threatening the coaching staff that they better not win the game. I really don't know what to make of it. It looked pretty suspicious, to say the least.
Well, again, I would say Joshua Dobbs. The thing about the Cowboys, I know that Cowboys have many problems on defense other than this Trayvon Diggs unfortunate injury. But even with that, we have a lot of still starters. All our starters are basically still in the mix because DaRon Bland moves up from the slot to the outside cornerback, and then we bring in Jordan Lewis, who was the starter last year before he got injured, which then let DaRon Bland come out there as a fifth-round rookie last year and do a great job. I think he has the most interceptions since he was on that field playing last year in the NFL. So DaRon Bland, you got to watch him, number 26. He'll be stepping up this week and have a larger role. But the problem, I think, with the Cowboy defense at most right now is maybe mobile quarterbacks. And even though we handled Zach Wilson last week, Dobbs is a mobile guy. He's going to use his legs, and we've had trouble with that. Although, again, we have our quarterback spy back on the team, our third safety, or we have 3 safeties we use all the time. Donovan Wilson, first game for the season for him, and he'll be keeping an eye on Joshua Dobbs. So mobility is going to be one of your X factors for your Cardinals to try to win this game from your quarterback, in my opinion. All right, so then speaking of the running game, let's talk about James Conner. To me, another one of your best players there on the offense that can maybe create something. I know a lot of that's going to come down to offensive line and blocking. We'll discuss that in a minute. But tell me a little bit about James Conner and how do you see them being used? I know that he's been overused, in my opinion, in the first 2 games already, on the ground and in the air. So what do you think?
I agree. I think that a part of the struggles we saw in the second half against the Giants especially came from the fact that he was probably running out of steam at that point of the game. The plays just weren't very successful. Part of that's going to be the blocking, of course. But I think he's the kind of running back that you need 2 yards, he'll get you 2 yards. But he's not going to have a lot of burst, a lot of speed downfield. And there were a couple of plays that, if he had better wheels, he probably would have scored on. Unfortunately for us, that's not something that we really expect to get out of him. He doesn't have a lot of that burst. But if we get a couple, help smooth the chains a few times, get us to a third and short position, something like that to help the drive stay alive. That's where he's most used. I will say that if he does have a, again, short yardage plays is something that the Cardinals historically have struggled with. He's actually been very reliable when it comes to those, third and 2, third and 1 kind of plays that he can get you that yardage.
Interesting. No, it's good to know. Now, I heard some whispers about Deontay Ingram. Is that his name? A rookie you guys drafted?
Well, he's a second-year player.
Right.
He's been very, very disappointing the last 2 games, and unfortunately, it's hard to tell how much of it, his carrying, or is it just a terrible offensive line. But it seems like he gets first contact 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he's not the kind of guy that's going to create something out of nothing like maybe James Conner would be able to do.
That's not sustainable
so
either.
Ingram has been completely a non-factor for us in these first 2 games, and then we have a guy named DeMarcado who played sparingly in preseason, had a nice carry to win the game against Denver, for what it's worth. But against the 1s and 2s of actual teams, he hasn't done anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're gonna have to. The Cowboys have struggled in the run game in the past. This year, a lot better. So we'll see how that looks versus you guys. Now, as far as your receiving game, I'm gonna start actually with tight ends because Zach Ertz is probably another weapon you have, although he's already on the older side of his career. You guys, I actually highlighted this week Trey McBride, your other tight end. He seems to do well when he catches the ball, when he's got his opportunities, which has been minimal. Jeff Swaim, he actually played for the Cowboys in the past, and Elijah Higgins, that's the tight ends. But Zach Ertz, obviously the starter. I suspect we'll have number 1 on our team, J-Ron Kearse, lock him down. We locked him down last time, even if you guys beat us. And he's been locked down even back to the Philly days. But whenever we've had J-Ron Kearse, now his 3rd year with the Cowboys, we have locked down pretty much all the best tight ends in the league because of J-Ron Kearse. So that's my matchup there. I think J-Ron Kearse wins that against Zach Ertz. But I know he's one of the favorite targets for your quarterback, Joshua Dobbs. So give me a little info on your Cardinals at the tight end position.
So for the first 2 games, well, at least for the first game against Washington, I think he only threw 1 pass more than 6 yards farther than 6 yards downfield. So they did open things up a little bit more in the second game, and that may just have been with his unfamiliarity with the roster and with his teammates. But we did still in the second game utilize tight ends probably more so, quite a bit more than even our receivers. So backs and tight ends are the ones who are the biggest threat in catching the ball. But Zach Ertz is not known for his breakaway speed. So if he's the kind of guy that might get you a 7-yard gain, move the chains type of deal again, but not a guy that's going to be an explosive threat. But
not like he used to be, for sure. Ertz.
Definitely not certainly not in our offense. McBride Trey McBride is probably more in that mold that he's going to be more of a deeper threat than Ertz would be, and McBride can maybe get some more yards after the catch. But for what he's worth, he's still a tight end. The other 2 guys, Swaim played very sparingly in the preseason. Maybe 1 or 2 series, didn't make any impact. He's more of a blocking tight end, is my understanding, from what little I've seen. And then Higgins was a guy we picked up from the waiver wire, so I don't even know if he's even suited up for any of the games yet.
So now, again, more passing targets for you guys, the receivers. Now, of course, no Trayvon Diggs to help lock down the receivers. We do have Stephon Gilmore, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, so we're still pretty damn good as far as coverage is concerned. But you guys have, of course, brought in Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, formerly of the Ravens. You guys have drafted Michael Wilson, who I believe was one of my hopes for the Cowboys to draft. He runs great routes, but I know he's still a rookie, obviously, right? I think, was he 3rd round? And then Rondell Moore, who's your slot receiver, who's been kind of underperforming. Tell me more about them. And I guess the backups, I know Dortch is your kick returner, punt returner guy. And, you have, Zach Pascal and a couple. I don't need to know about those guys. Just the starters, those starting 3. That's your main targets. Give me the wrap-up on them.
I'll tell you, there's probably not any real significance between those 5 guys. Dortch has gotten very little playtime in the offense. He's been mostly a special teams guy, but in the past season, he's been probably our most reliable receiver catching the ball downfield, which a lot of Cardinals fans have been very surprised that he hasn't been used more in the offense. Because yes, I get it. He was an undrafted guy. He was not anybody that you think would make an impact, but has been probably the most dependable guy from last season. Now, that being said, he's tiny. And we have a lot of very small receivers, and that's been our issue even last season. Outside of Hopkins from last year, we had a bunch of guys that were probably 5'9". These guys are not very big, powerful guys. And I think the new coaching staff really wants to utilize these more physical receivers, more like a Larry Fitzgerald type. Well, it turns out that Hollywood Brown is also very small. I mentioned Dortch is very small. And so when a lot of our offenses is based on downfield, get these receivers to go out down there and start throwing blocks, these guys may not see a lot of playing time. So my guess is probably why Dortch hasn't been on the offense, mainly because of that. Wilson has played sparingly, had a couple of nice catches in his first couple of games, but not really a game breaker yet that we've seen. Again, he's young, he's a rookie. We'll see what he does. Zach Pascal was brought in, again, played very little in exhibition and hasn't really had a chance to do much. Again, we haven't really challenged the defenses downfield very much. And so perhaps these guys are due for a breakout game. We just haven't seen it yet. So again, it's hard for me to judge their ability because we really haven't tried it.
Rondale Moore, anything with him?
Oh, so Rondale Moore, well, let's just say he was the favorite of the previous regime, where they always kind of swing passes, these little behind the line of scrimmage passes, little bubble screens, and that stuff has been a disaster. That's why the former coaching staff is the former coaching staff, and unfortunately, he really hasn't shown up this season. And that's true in training camp. There were whispers, nothing was really being said about him. Exhibition games, he did very little, and in the 2 games, he's been a complete non-factor. So a massive disappointment. May still be a little bit banged up. And again, another smaller receiver that is not going to be able to contend with any kind of physical play.
Now all of this you said about taking shots downfield. I know you're saying about a breakout game, but you're forgetting you're playing the Dallas Cowboy defense, and I say that because the offensive line is the key, I think, to any team to try to slow us down. And again, I said about the run game, you guys have to block for James Conner and whoever else you throw back there. And as far as the receiving game, you want to hit it downfield, you're not going to have time. Cowboys are the fastest. We got 4 guys in the top 10 in pressures. We have the fastest time to get to the quarterback. We've played probably better offensive lines than you guys, although I guess it's close because, again, I don't even know how to pronounce your center's name. He looks like he's Swedish or something. Hajlet Forholt. Elijah Wilkinson, left guard. Will Hernandez, I don't know if he's playing. He's the right guard. DJ Humphreys is the left tackle. And the right tackle, Paris Johnson Jr. I know you have Kelvin Beachum coming back from a hand injury. He's probably your best guy out there. Well, give me just a quick synopsis of your offensive line, run blocking, pass blocking, because you're going to need your best game of all these guys in their history to contend against our Cowboy defensive pass rush.
So I think our offensive line, for all the weaknesses of the Cardinal team, is actually not that terrible. I think Frøyholt, I think that's how it's pronounced. He's actually Danish, I think. He was an off-season pickup that a lot of fans were really down on, but he's actually been probably our best performer and a very pleasant surprise for our team so far. Meanwhile, Will Hernandez in the right guard has been solid. Nothing really negative to say about him. Our 2 starting tackles, have been quite good. DJ Humphreys has been slow in his career, kind of getting to this point, but he's probably one of the above average left tackles out there in the game right now, in the NFC. And then on the right side, we have the rookie first round pick, Paris Johnson Jr., who has not looked like a rookie. So I think those 4 guys have been quite solid. The problem is the left guard, Wilkerson, who has been below average in his performances thus far, and unfortunately for us, in our last preseason game against the Vikings, we lost our backup center and our backup guard to injuries for the season, gone. And then even Beachum now has gotten injured, so our backup tackle has been nicked up a little bit. He's presumably he'll be available for this game, but we are pulling up practice squad guys as backups. And I think if those 5 guys, with Wilkerson being the weakest of the link, the 5 starters can stay healthy, that might give us a little bit of a shot. Now the issue, I think, for our offense, and maybe we can kind of touch on this again at the end as a synopsis, but I think our offense has not relied on the big vertical game. So far, at least from the play designs that we've had, we haven't really needed to give the quarterback, 6 seconds to backdate or scramble around and find an open receiver. Our passing game has been mainly on short passes, short plays, 7 to 10 yards, no more than that. So if that's clicking, then maybe the Dallas pass rush isn't going to be as much of an impact. But then again, we haven't seen a defense like yours this season.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that the Cowboys run similar plays as your Cardinals run there, in the sense that we call it Texas Coast offense. It's Kellen Moore's plays, but it's got to be quicker. And I think that's because of our offensive line depth issues. McCarthy's been practicing and getting ready for this. So look, our defense is going to be practicing against quick passes the whole week. We've been doing this. So to me, I think that we'll be ready for that short game, that quick game, and Cowboys are very, very fast. Again, like you said, yes, that's true. If you get the ball out fast, you got a shot. But you know who tried that? The Jets last week. And they couldn't get anything going. So I'm just saying, like, we'll see if you guys can do it. I just think that the Jets tried and they failed miserably. And I don't know if you guys are set up to handle that. But again, you know, we got to stop. I think if we stop the run, I mean, if we stop your run, I think it's over. I mean, forcing you guys that we know you're going to pass every time. It's just you guys are going to have 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, almost every play at best. So, you know, you better have, you know, and again, against good coverage, very good coverage, even with Trayvon Diggs gone. So I think it's going to be a problem for you guys, and that's when the turnovers and other issues could come into play. I know you know, maybe you haven't been the worst. I don't know how you guys been on turnovers, but offensively, we will definitely be able to cause them and create turnovers on your side, fumbles, interceptions, whatever it may be.
The only 2 turnovers we had were week 1 against Washington. One was a strip sack fumble by Dobbs that basically gave up the lead in the fourth quarter. And in the following drive, we had a bad exchange from center, also Josh Dobbs, fumbling the ball, which set up the Commanders for the final field goal, which put them up by 4. He hasn't thrown any interceptions. He did have 1 pick last week that was negated by an interference goal, but the defensive holding, it was clearly that was what caused the interception. He basically held the tight end and couldn't get, the guy there was no offensive player in the vicinity. The ball was picked. But no, we've actually been pretty decent with possession. However, again, we haven't really been challenging defenses vertically, and so a lot of safe, very conservative play calling.
So let's now jump onto the defensive side of the ball for you guys versus our Texas Coast offense. Of course, we're going to start with the defensive line for you guys. And listen, you guys have Carlos Watkins. We know Carlos Watkins is in Dallas, and he's out for this game. So we don't know who the rest of the guys are. Leki Fotu is the nose tackle. He's banged up. He's questionable for the game. And then I have Jonathan Ledbetter as your other guy here on the defensive front. I'm assuming Dante Stills or Kevin Strong, one of those guys, will jump in there for Carlos Watkins. How you feel about your defensive front? I know you guys run a 3-4, so we'll talk about Dennis Gardeck, who I think is also playing on that line. Zaven Collins, with the as the outside linebackers, but in a 3-4, usually you can have them as an edge rusher. So give me a synopsis on that side of the trench.
So that's been the biggest complaint by a lot of the fans going into the season, that we have these no-name guys on the defensive line. And they're not wrong. We really don't have any stars on the defense. But the only named player probably is Buda Baker back in the defensive backfield, and he's on IR. So it's a defensive team that is a bunch of nobodies, basically, guys off the street. But that's maybe where Jonathan Gannon's got these guys playing best, is that he takes these guys that aren't big names and he gets them to work together as a unit. And the first couple of weeks, the defensive front actually looked halfway decent, despite having nobody of any real reputation on there. And the difficulty that we ran into against the Giants, I think, in the second half, was that we started losing guys to injury during the game. And with these guys coming out, we lost the rotation. So there's not any one guy that really gets the starting job over the other. They're all pretty much interchangeable. And that's where I think we lost that depth. And without that depth, we really fell apart. We got no pressure on the Giants quarterback in the second half. I think Leki Fotu has been a mediocre player all his career. He's been on the Cardinals team now for several years. Dante Stills is a rookie who made a couple mistakes last week. I think he got flagged for a late hit. That was a critical turning point for our defense. Also, Strong, who I was never that impressed with in preseason, got the job over Rashard Lawrence, who I thought was the better player, who gets cut. Now, with all the struggles we've been having on the defensive front, in terms of injuries, I'm surprised we haven't picked up Lawrence. He's actually on, I think, the Dolphins practice squad. And he's the guy who knows defense. He'd be an obvious pickup for the Cardinals, but at least as of right now, they haven't made a move to sign him to the active roster. And I'm a little bit surprised, because I thought he was the better player compared to Strong. I thought he should have made the roster. And he's been on the team for a couple of years, so he knows his teammates. They kind of know him. But those are the main guys on the front there, on the defensive line.
I want to jump in here because I want to talk about your edge rushers. Specifically,
we'll get to those.
Dennis Gardeck. I mean, Dennis Gardeck and Zaven Collins, aren't these two guys pretty good? They're pretty solid, aren't they?
Again, I think they're just random guys that happen to play well as a team. So Gardeck was injured 2 years ago, late in the season, having a great year, used very sparingly, but whenever he made a play, whenever he was in the game, he made an impact. And it was like, wait, you got 9 snaps and 3 sacks. It's like, wait, this guy's well performing above where you would expect for the amount of playing time he's been getting. So there's a lot of hope for him, and then he gets injured, gets carted off the field, and then when he came back last season, he was a mere shell of his old self. And we were like, well, there goes the Cardinals again, paying this guy all this money for a guy that's a scrub now, and he was a scrub before, he was a scrub then. However, this season, he's actually played a lot better. And so maybe he just needed some more time to heal from his injury. I don't know. But he's not a household name. He's had a few disruptive plays that against Washington that scored a touchdown. He forced the fumble that got us the defensive touchdown. Another guy there is Cameron Thomas, third year player, I think, for the Cardinals, who is also getting more playing time as an edge rusher. A rookie we picked up this year was B.J. Ojulari, who was injured most of training camp, most of preseason, but did get a little bit of playing time, just kind of working him in slowly. And then David Collins, who's been moved out basically from the inside linebacker position as to an edge rusher, has had a couple of nice plays. But these are not superstars by any stretch of the imagination. We need to just keep them in there, get some pass pressure, keep them with the edge contained. And again, as a unit, they've been playing well. But it's not like I can point to one guy and say that's the difference maker. There really isn't. And in a way, that might be an advantage to us because there's no one guy you got a key on because there really isn't a star. But if they all work together and they all do their job, they might, as a unit, have some success.
Yeah, I actually, looking at my work for this week on your Cardinals, Dennis Gardeck and Victor
Demukage.
Yeah, they have come, he has Gardeck has 3 sacks and Demukage has 2 sacks. So they got to keep an eye on those guys as far as I'm concerned on the outside, along with Zaven Collins, who again. I think is better on the outside as a rusher than an inside linebacker. And inside linebacker, we're going to talk about that too, because Kazir White, formerly of the Eagles, and Josh Woods, I know he is out for this game. So you're going to have Kazir White. You're going to have Chris Barnes have to step up. And there, I think he's also one of your free agents you picked up this year. Owen Papo and Ezekiel Turner, don't even care about them. I don't know how much rotation they get in the mix there. So, again, you talk about rotation on the defensive front. The Cowboys do a lot of that as well. I understand what you're saying when it comes to Dan Quinn. It's vital. We have our 3rd and 4th stringers sometimes because there is a rotation that Dan Quinn uses. So when it comes to the linebacker spot for you guys, how do you feel about your linebackers? To me, it's a little bit of the, like you said, non-household names, the guys that are kind of put together from free agency.
So Kazir White was the main guy we brought in. Again, knows the Philadelphia defense because he knows the coaching staff. So that was the guy that was, I think, the one big, if you call it a big pickup. The Cardinals have been very stingy this offseason. Basically, again, trying to work toward the following year. We know that that this season is not going to be a successful season, and so this is the one guy, the one piece that might be there for a few years to kind of blossom hopefully as the season goes on. Because you're White, he should be healthy, he should be in the game. He's the guy with green dot, so he should be the main play caller on defense. And then the other 2 guys, I would say Barnes and Woods were kind of interchangeable. Like neither one really stood out in the games that I've seen. Of course, Woods is out, so that is a blow. But again, not like he's irreplaceable. I think Barnes is just as good. He steps up. Zeke Turner on the defensive side. He's been with the Cardinals now for a number of years. Plays a lot of special teams, but has made some plays over his tenure with the Cardinals in that inside linebacker position. So he's not exactly what I call a scrub. I think he's actually halfway decent. Owen Papo is a rookie who looked terrible in preseason, and he may not even be active for the game. So I think he's a non-factor. I'm not sure who else we would get to that rotation because we're very, very thin.
I don't see anybody else on your roster and depth chart. Probably
may have brought the guy in.
Yeah, you probably have to elevate someone from the practice squad.
Exactly.
So to finalize things in your secondary, and maybe a quick touch up on the special teams, but on your secondary cornerbacks, again. Well, let me just start with the secondary. Buda Baker gone. That's obviously a huge, huge loss. I know how much of a problem it was when you guys played us the last couple times, so it's a major loss. I wish you guys were at full strength so we can get tested. But, yeah, Buda Baker, big loss. We know he's out for at least 4 weeks, but it's going to probably be longer than that. So you had out in your secondary, you have a cornerback, K-Trell Clark. I think he's a rookie. You got Marco Wilson on the other side of him. Antonio Hamilton Sr., which I've heard of him, and Christian Matthew. A couple of Christian Boyd and Sterling Thomas. I'm sure those guys are not really in the rotation. So, which are your main cornerbacks you're going to be using in this game? I'd say your outside 2 and your nickel cornerback.
Well, that's anyone's guess. I can tell you that this is the position on our team that was the most desperate for any kind of playmaker. We really did not look good in preseason. I was trying to predict the guys who would make the roster, and aside from the top 4 guys, basically the 4 starters, there was nobody that I thought was worth keeping. And they essentially dumped everybody and brought in a few waiver wire guys that I still know very little about. I will tell you that the starting corners are going to probably be Marco Wilson, who had a terrible second half against the Giants, and probably himself single-handedly cost us that game. The Giants, I don't think they threw anything.
So attack him is what you're saying. Attack him.
Yes, I think that's going to be. Well, he has had decent games throughout his career. I'm not sure if there's anything particular about last week's game that was challenging for him specifically. You may remember him as the guy for the Florida Gators who threw his shoe against LSU and cost him the game way back when. Well, here he is in the pros now and making mental mistakes, cost us the game against the Giants. One of the goats of that game. However,
he's going up against CeeDee Lamb this time, so keep that in mind as well. It's going to be a lot tougher. And again, you got Michael Gallup or Brandon Cooks. He's going to be back in this game, and you have Keitrell Clark.
Yeah, so Keitrell Clark is a rookie, I think a 6th-round pick, and has actually played well in the exhibition and has looked good in his first 2 games. He has not looked like a rookie. So, he's going to make mistakes. I expect that. Again, this is a season that we're not going to win very many games. I'd be happy if we go 1-16, to be honest. That we're legitimately that bad. And a guy like Keitrell Clark, who gets a lot of playing time, maybe this is the start of something. He makes himself a career out of it. But he's basically our second starter in the cornerback position. And again, this is an inexperienced player who hasn't looked bad, hasn't really been targeted, but that usually means he's covering his guy. So he's played well above his draft status, and let's just see how long he can keep it up. After him, see what other corners we got there. Chris Matthews is absolute. I think it's his name, Christian Matthews. Yeah, he's terrible. Should not have made the roster, but we had nobody else behind him. We had any bit of a serviceable reserves, he would have been cut. And then we have a couple of guys we picked up off the street that I couldn't tell you very much about in terms of the cornerback spot. In terms of safety, of course, we have Buda Baker, who's out. We have other guys that have come. Actually, Kayvon Wallace was picked up as a waiver wire guy, who's looked phenomenal, especially against Washington. So he's a guy that we expected nothing from, and has actually played quite well.
He's your starter along with Jalen Thompson.
Yeah, Jalen Thompson. He's been a very solid player for the couple of years now that he's been on the team. I think he is somebody who I would rely on. He had, I believe, an interception against the Giants on a deflected ball. But I think, So Jalen Thompson and Buda Baker are good starters. Of course, no Buda Baker. That means Kayvon Wallace will get a lot more playing time, and I do like what I've seen in him so far. After that, looking at the other defensive backs we've got, there's a guy named Shasheri who was absolute trash and was absolute trash in preseason games, and somehow made the roster and has been elevated to get more playing time, which is a guy, if he's on the field, by all means, you need to target him because he is a terrible, terrible player. Meanwhile, we also had Hamilton. Hamilton was that. He's the guy that last season burnt himself in a freak cooking accident, like a week before the season began.
I remember him. Yeah,
third degree burns down his leg. It was a pretty hideous-looking injury.
It was on the Hard Knocks show, I think, and they followed him around when he burned himself. He melted the skin off his foot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he's back now. But I'm not sure he's gotten a lot of playing time. I'm not sure what's going on there. But he hasn't made any glaring mistakes for what I've noticed, at least these first couple of games.
Yeah, do you have anybody who's playing the nickel, the slot corner?
Your guess is as good as I might.
That's dangerous.
Chris Boyd might be in there.
Boyd. I'm just saying, that means, CeeDee Lamb plays like 60, 70, 80% sometimes in the slot. That's going to be key.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how the Cardinals are going to handle that. They're going to move guys around, some smoke and mirrors, and hope that, again, I know if his defensive coaching is any good, this is the time for him to make his money, because we really are playing with a patchwork defensive backfield, and that's
This might be the game the Cowboys do some play action and go a little deeper than they have. The Cowboys have not been going in deep passes. Been very effective and efficient, though, with Dak and kind of picking and choosing what the defense gives you. But now if you guys kind of make one bad move in the safety spot, we will attack that. And I'm looking for Dak to kind of, attack, but also see it's us able to run the ball. So it's going to be an interesting battle there. I don't know what you guys are good at on defense, but I know that we are solid across the board on offense, efficient. Passing, could be better at running for sure, but one of the more, I think, a top 10 efficient offense in the NFL. So it's going to be tough for your Cardinals for sure.
We've been successful with stopping the running game. I think that's something that not many of our fans had expected, and actually did a fairly decent job with that, and getting some pressure on the quarterback. But obviously, if we give the quarterback any kind of time back there, that this defensive backfield is not going
Dak's got the same scheme. Dak's got the same scheme as your guys. He's going to get the ball out in 2 seconds, and occasionally, if there's extra, if there's time and there's another option, he might go deep. But I also think that running the ball, the Giants and the Washington Commanders have overall not very good offensive lines. You guys, we have all 5 of our offensive linemen expected to play tomorrow against the Cardinals. So, first time all year we have them. Maybe the first time I think McCarthy's had 5 offensive linemen that are supposed to be the starters playing. I think maybe 4 times in his whole career he's had this with the Cowboys here, entering his 4th year with Dallas. So we're gonna have our best offensive linemen out there. I think we're a top 5, top 10 easily offensive line group when they're all healthy, finally healthy. This could be trouble for the Cardinals, even if you've been good at stopping the run in recent weeks here this season.
No, I agree. I think the only way I see our defense holding the Cowboys into a manageable score would be to get some turnovers, bad balls, things like that, the line of scrimmage, and then of course the Cowboys have to shoot themselves in the foot. I think if the Cowboys don't make mistakes, there's almost no chance the Cardinals are going to win this game. Yeah, we're not going to win it in a shootout.
We probably have to make a lot of mistakes as well. Yeah, a lot of, not just one mistake. Pick 6 for you guys.
I said mistakes plural.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I need to make mistakes.
Anything on the special team side? I know Matt Prater's really good. Cooney has got similar distance as far as Anger has so far. Punting. I know you talked about Dortch, your returner. So any really quick things on that before we get to your final prediction?
Yeah, so Matt Prater, he's about 100 years old right now, but he still has the leg. He still has the distance. So, for example, against the Giants in the final seconds, we got the ball back. We really trying to target the midfield. If we got to the midfield stripe, he probably would have attempted a 68-yarder. You know what? He's probably made him in practice. I think he has the leg. Against Washington in the rain at sea level, he made a 55-yarder that hit the top of the back of the net. So I think strength, on field goals, I think he certainly has the ability to make long kicks. But he has his obligatory single miss every week. He'll make some inaccuracy. He'll miss it, and the fans will get on him for that. But I think though he's up there in years, at least we have a guy that if we need a long kick at the end of the game, I think he's a guy that can do it.
It sounds like it sounds like you get most points from him against the Cowboys if you get any points. But all right. And punting,
I agree.
Punt returns, kick
punting. Cooney is new. He replaces Andy Lee, who was a longtime player for the Cardinals. Cooney has actually had pretty decent kicks, and certainly has been able to, except for one bad attempt against Washington, has been quite solid with good booming kicks that doesn't outtake his coverage. So no, I think that he's been all we can really ask for, and of course probably more important for that is his job holding for the kicker. I think that's been our biggest concern, but he's been doing a good job with that. As far as kick return, punt return, we really haven't shown much. As you know, with the kicking game nowadays, kick return, you're not going to see very many returns unless it's a last-second desperate type of a situation. Most of them go to touchbacks. Punt return, we had a couple nice ones against Washington, but nothing to really write home about. I think Dortch. I'm not sure who else we throw back there. Really, nothing terribly explosive that we've seen.
Well, I mean, great breakdown. A good look at the team, the Cardinal players, the kind of I won't say we didn't get deep in schematics, but we got pretty much what you guys do on offense, how you guys play on defense, and your weaknesses, your strengths. Good breakdown. But now I must ask you the final question of our little interview here. Your prediction and final score for this game. How do you think things will work out? And I guess I know you hope the Cardinals win, but there's really not a chance, I think. So what's your prediction and your thoughts about this game as we wrap it up?
Well, do be careful about saying there's not a chance. I think the last time Mike McCarthy played a Cardinal team that didn't have a chance, it cost him his job in Green Bay. So I've seen some pretty bad Cardinal teams. I've seen the Cardinal team go to Green Bay and win for the first time ever at Lambeau, and for the first time ever in Green Bay since 1947. And that was probably a worse Cardinal team that we're dealing with now. Although we'll see what the records end up at the end of the season. I do think this is a much better Dallas team than Green Bay had back then, and that's the one thing that all the media hype the Cowboys get, and many times undeserved, I think this year it is deserved, and Dallas is by far the superior team in this game, and I see the Cardinals losing by a score of 38-6, and that's maybe being generous for the Cardinals with the 6. I don't think we're going to be much of a competition here. Again, it's going to take mind-numbing mistakes by the Cowboys to really keep us in the game. And maybe, just maybe, we play a lot of possession, control the clock, short passes, keep the Cowboys a little bit off balance on defense, and maybe, get a couple of, scores here and there. We might be able to hang for a bit. I mean, even as bad as the Jets played, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say the halftime score was still within reach. It wasn't until really the second half.
Yeah, they have a good defense. They have a good defense, but again, they have a great defense, and we still put up 18 points in the first half on them. All offensive points, by the way, not with defensive help. So, just saying, that's big for the Cowboys to have 18 points in the Jets' defense, in my opinion. We'll see how the Cardinals' defense handles our offense, and of course, have they seen a defense like ours? You guys, no, definitely not.
Well, I don't think there are many defenses in the league like the Cowboys, so I think that's a fair statement. We aren't going to see very many more like them down the stretch. Well, we do have the Niners the following week, but I think the Cardinals. Just again, I do worry that they are out there to tank the season. Without saying it, but. My goal at this point, if you could have guaranteed me to go 1-16, I'll take it rather than let the chips fall where they may. Because I'm truly afraid that they are bad enough to go winless. But we do play some bad teams. You got the Texans, the Bears, the Browns, the Steelers. None of them are world beaters.
Yeah,
the Falcons,
those Texans, those Eastside Harold Texans.
This is I don't know. It's there are a lot of bad teams out there, but I think our scores are a bit misleading. I think you're going to see that Washington and the New York Giants are going to be some of the bottom teams this league. I don't think Washington is going to be any good, and I think the Giants are going to be a losing record by the time all is said and done. So I can't take much solace out of the fact that we almost won those games. Those are bad teams that we lost to, and we're going to start playing some good teams. Scores get out of hand.
This week, next week against the Niners, these are the best teams now in the NFC. So, good luck. Although, I'm talking crap because, we're talking shit to each other here because it's the Cowboys-Cardinals. You guys want to beat us, I think, 6 straight times here before this. So
6 out of 7.
Yeah, F you.
We did lose, and I believe in 2017, we did lose in a Monday Night Football game, but we did win the other 6 of the last 7, and some of them were absolute epic beatdowns.
Yeah, whatever.
Love it.
That's why I talk shit, and that's why there's no way we can lose with this Trayvon Diggs situation. Unfortunately, maybe refocus the Cowboys, but then after yesterday's trash talk from media outlets and some people on ESPN, Bart Scott, talking about, bad things happening to the Cowboys. It's like, the Cowboys got mad about this, and they are, kind of coming together even closer as a team. And unfortunately, I think your offense, Joshua Dobbs, is going to take the brunt of the beating. We'll see what happens, man. And again, I said 30-0 in the first when it opened up in the week, and now I was thinking 40 or more to nothing. Anyways, we'll see what happens. Dr. G, I appreciate you here hanging with me and the wife and the family here as we hear your breakdown. And we'll see what happens tomorrow against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona with our Dallas Cowboy Big D and Texas Coast offense. Anything else you want to say before we say goodnight?
Oh, of course. The obligatory Go Cardinals.
All right. Thanks, Dr. G. Take care. And we'll talk after the game tomorrow. Go Cowboys!